Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're asking the question, how many folks have traveled to Thailand since the pandemic began? And the reason I brought this up is I found an excerpt in an article, kind of an otherwise, it was an article about sort of not really related to this topic directly, but there was an excerpt that I thought was really insightful. The article is titled, Thailand Pass Set to Replace COE. It's from the Bangkok Post, bangkokpost.com. And the excerpt is just a tiny excerpt. I urge those watching this video, go check out that article. The excerpt, quoting directly, according to Mr. Tani, and Mr. Tani is Tani Sangrat, and he's a spokesman for the Foreign Affairs Ministry. So quoting, according to Mr. Tani, his ministry has approved more than 400,000 COEs for Thai and foreign nationals so far. Well, let's really dig into that, what that means. So March 2020, specifically March 26, 2020, if I recall, they promulgated the emergency decree. They shut down Thailand and instituted quarantine measures. In fact, it might have been a couple of days before that it started happening, if I recall. So that's when this all began. They implemented the certificate of entry system pretty quickly thereafter. This came online very quickly. As I recall, it was the end of March. We were starting to talk about this around April, May of 2020. And when we started talking about this, it was, as I recall, there was no one coming in. We were locked down. The country was in lockdown. So, according to this article, more than 400,000. So, okay, 400,000 and change. We'll just use 400,000 as a round number because that's what the Bangkok Post cited, citing this government spokesperson. Presumably that's everybody that's come in, because Thai nationals had to use COEs, I think still do, and so do foreign nationals. So is that the total number of folks that have come into Thailand? I'm not saying it is. I'm genuinely asking this question. But is that the total number of, I mean, non-civilian, maybe diplomatic travelers, hard to say, things like that, but let's just put that aside and forget about that. But you know, civilian travelers, tourists, non-immigrant visa holders, business visa holders, work permit holders, perhaps permanent residents, even Thai nationals included in that number? If so, remember in 2019, Thailand saw 40 million tourists in 2019. And if that's the case, it really, to me, puts a fine point on things in a bunch of different ways. One, just how much this has affected the tourism sector, if these numbers are right. Secondly, just how, I hesitate to use the term desperately, but just how urgently we need to, moving forward, look at getting this tourism situation to sort of right this ship. We need to get some serious numbers into Thailand. And I hope that policymakers are looking at this. I think they are. There's no question in my mind. Everybody is concerned about this. I don't think that there seems to be a kind of I don't know what you want to call it, a kind of a meme floating around out there in the ether of the internet. So I see it in comments on various forums and things that, oh, they don't care about tourism sector anymore. No, they do. I have no doubt. Policymakers care a very great deal about the tourism sector in Thailand. It's a huge segment of GDP. It employs a lot of folks. There is not some ambivalence or indifference toward this. There's just a lot of, I hesitate to use a word, but I guess there's no other real word. There's a lot of fear to some extent. There's a lot of folks that are very reticent about just opening the gates and seeing what happens. And I can understand that. Now, that said, in my mind, based on what I'm seeing, I think it's very much an acceptable risk when you look at a cost-benefit analysis. And especially when you consider that it looks like we went from 40 million tourists in 1 year down to 400,000 total entrants over the course of over 18 months. Those are staggering comparisons to make, staggering numbers to look at. Hopefully we will see positive things moving forward here at the end of 2021 and into 2022 here in the Kingdom of Thailand.